Hi everyone, my name is Phil. I rent motorcycles out of Phoenix, Arizona. I've been doing it since the start of 2026. And I know a lot of you probably have questions about whether you should rent your bike, and if so, how you should rent your bike. Um, I've sort of taken this from a bit of a hobby into a small business, if you will. And I want to give you an idea of what it's like, what my experience has been, and hopefully from that you can make your own choice as to whether to do this, and if you do it, how to do it. So let's talk about, first of all, the I'll scroll down here a little bit. Let's talk about the motorcycle choice, because this I think drives a lot of it. If you have a popular bike to rent, which typically is going to be a Harley Davidson, and certain models of Harleys you can use your AI search to determine which models. I didn't have any Harleys or any Harley experience, but did have experience with the R series engines from BMW. So I decided to start with two 1200 GS. These are 2016s. They're identical bikes in every way except the luggage. This one has the Vario cases, this one has aluminum cases, but they are identical. They both went up on the RiderShare and Twisted Road websites at the same price, and they both started January 1st. So I've got 7 months of history with those bikes to show you what's going on. I then added a few other bikes. I wasn't planning to add a 1300 GS, for example, but I found a really good deal on it, so I did. And then I also added an RT because I thought that would be really popular around here as a backup to the GS bikes. These two bikes at the top are Ducatis, and you can see there's just really no interest in renting Ducati. So that's my first advice: is choose a bike that uh, that if you're looking for rental revenue, choose bikes that are popular. If you've got something other than the Harleys or the GSAs and RTs from BMW, you might struggle with getting those things off the ground. So that's the first thing I would consider. Second thing to consider is, if this is your personal bike. None of these are my personal bikes. If this is your personal bike, just beware. They do take a bit of a beating. Like, I've had people take my RT on dirt roads, you know, thinking that it was a GS, when it's got road smart tires on it. That's a big heavy bike. Didn't appreciate that very much, but yeah, people will do what they do. So just beware of that. The bike takes a little bit of a beating. Sometimes they get dropped, sometimes you get flats, sometimes things don't work. And so, yeah, keep an eye out for that. So I went for these 1200 GS, which are very reliable. Haven't had too many issues with those bikes at all, except flat tires and the occasional drop. Now, in terms of another consideration here, take a look at the blue and the white bike. I do not know why this happens, but I almost have twice as many bookings of the blue one as opposed to the white one. I don't know why. They're exactly the same price. They're exactly the same bike, exactly the same year. In fact, the white one has lower miles, and the white one has, in my mind, a better looking bike. But for whatever reason, that blue one seems to fly off the shelf relative to the white one. And I, for the life of me, can't figure out why. The other thing to look at is the relation of the top bar, which is the revenue, and the bottom bar, which is the bookings and the days booked. So if I look at this 1200 GS here, at the top, the blue one, 22 bookings, right, for a more than 60 days. So how many days have I got? 69 days, 22 bookings. And that has earned approximately $4,500. So it's almost, it was an $8,500 bike, so it's almost paid for itself. It will have paid for itself within a year. So that's good. But then let's take a look at this 1300 GS. And only 3 bookings, but the revenue on that bike is $2,000 almost between these current bookings. And I have not had that bike for nearly as long. That bike has only been available for 3 months total. So 3 months, 3 bookings, and pretty good revenue out of it. Now, here's the thing. This bike, I got a great deal on it, but it cost me more than these 2 bikes combined, these 2016s. But let's look at something here. Every time you do a booking, there's a check-in and there's a check-out. And the check-in and the check-out, on average, I would say take an hour. You have to get the person there. They have to take pictures of the bike. You've got to take pictures of their license, record the mileage, make sure everything is, your air pressures are correct. You've got oil in it, starts up fine, batteries fully charged, all that kind of stuff. And then getting the renter um, oriented to your bike. So that takes some time. And then on the way back, when they drop the bike off, typically people want to chat. Sometimes they've got a flight to catch and they've got to run, but a lot of times, and you'll meet some really great people doing this. I've met some, amazing people from around the world. And it's great to talk to them. A lot of times I'll just invite them in the house. We'll sit on the back patio and have a beer, and they'll tell you all about their adventures, tell you about their life back home. And everyone says they'll be back to do this again. So just remember that there's a fair bit of time in every booking. And the other thing that happens is if this has been out for 69 days, the average number of miles that I've seen per day is about 150. So you think of tires and oil changes, oil filters, air filters, and whatever else you might need for maintenance. It's going to happen a lot more often the more bookings that you get. So there's an argument to be made as to, maybe down here with just 3 bookings, this is actually a better investment for me than these bikes here that are sort of very high volume and do take up a lot of time in the booking and also in the service process. The other thing that I want to point out is I've got 2 bikes here that are identical. And why is that important? Well, if you've got 2 buddies that want the same bike, rather than pick up one from you and one from someone else, like Eagle Rider. Eagle Rider has one GS bike available here in the Valley. And if you both want it, well, lots of times I've got that second booking, or I've taken both bookings from riders, from Eagle Rider, because I've got the bikes available and they're in one location. And that has been really valuable. I should be tracking actually how many people have gone out with both bikes, because it happens, I'd say almost 50% of the time. So I would say out of these 12 bookings that there's probably 8 of those bookings where both bikes going out. So father-son duo, 2 buddies, or husband and wife. And that takes care of those 2 bikes. So getting 2 bikes the same is a great idea if you can do it, or if you do have those 2 bikes. The other thing I want to point out is that over time, the bike gets more traffic, if you will, through RiderShare and Twisted. The more reviews that you have, the more feedback from people, the more ratings that you get on the bike, the more bookings you will get. Why blue and white are so different, I still don't really understand, but let's take a look at this bike here, which is a 1250 RT. I thought when I added this bike that this would be a really good foil to the GS bikes, and it took a long time before I got any bookings on the 1250 RT. I was thinking it was a failure, but it just took some time. And now that it's got some bookings and some history, it is starting to fly off the shelf, if you will. And so that's an interesting thing. So in terms of future fleet, I'm definitely going to get out of the Ducati business, get another either GS or another 1250, or maybe a GSA. But yeah, I think stick within the BMW brand for rentals, and you'll learn that from asking Grok or ChatGPT or Gemini what they think. You'll find that they'll give you specific models that rent well. And you also have to look, I think, at what your location, what people are planning to do, where they're going to ride. They come to Arizona. I think they think GS is a great bike to have out here, which it is. And then the RT is, fantastic if you want to do, Death Valley, or you want to go to Palm Springs or something like that. A big long ride is fantastic, or for a couple. So that's some sort of insights into this. The other thing to look at is, so it takes a little while for your bike to cure. So here's the bookings by agency. Twisted is the black, and Riders is the orange. And you can see it's sort of peaks and valleys, and they kind of offset each other, but it comes down to pretty much a 50-50 split between the two platforms. But to show you the ramp up, you can see when I first started in January, everything's brand new, last minute bookings, people haven't seen you before. Now, as time goes on, you start to get more and more bookings. And then very surprisingly, when it starts to get very hot here in May and June, my bookings have been pretty good. I mean, May is almost $3,000 for the month, and June was almost $2,000 for the month. So somewhere in between there's likely where it's going to average out for the year, but not all bikes were available for all those months. But it does take time for what I'll say curing to get more visibility into the for the bike on those platforms. And I've noticed lately that RiderShare does a lot of Facebook advertising, and my bike is popping up quite often. One of my two bikes, either the RT or the Blue GS. Again, not the white one so much, but yeah, the Blue GS seems to be popping up quite regularly. So I thought it'd be handy for you to see this, just because it's some real data points, some real experience of what I've had. And so I think the first choice, of course, is what bike do you have, or what bike are you planning to get? And I can sort of demonstrate that, yeah, GS is a good bike to rent. So is the RT. And you want to make a decision as to how much bike do you want. 1300s are still very expensive. I did get a great deal on this one, or I wouldn't have bought it. And these GSs were fairly inexpensive, and they will pay for themselves fairly quickly. And then the BMW 1250, I think, is going to be a great bike, but just took a little while to sort of catch on. Anyway, if you have any questions, or you want to get into a discussion, please just let me know your thoughts. And I'd like to talk to you, get your opinions on and your experiences to what you've seen renting your bike, and we can continue the conversation from there. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.